Alright, let's try this again. Here's what I resorted to. I've talked to my sponsor, uh, friend. He's the guy that runs Rebel Devil Customs. His name's Mike Johnson. He's done a lot of paint before. He actually painted my custom bumper that he made for my Fusion with some fiberglass work. Made a custom center exit. I asked him what could possibly be causing the bubbles. There's a couple things that it could be. It could be the fiberglass itself having air in it and it being released over the paint. It could be off gassing of the layers of paint. No matter what I need to do is get down to the fiberglass. Nowhere on the sides do I see these bubbles. It's only on the top. So I'm going to try to get away with just doing the top, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing. I'm using my sander here, and I started here already, and I'm just going to work my way over. I'm going to have you guys watch what I'm doing. I'm trying to keep it flat, but I noticed if I hold it just at a little bit of an angle, it helps eat away at it easier. And I'm pretty much just going back and forth till I could get to the white of the fiberglass. As soon as I get off of that white, or to the white I should say, I kind of just move out of the way. You can see there's the black. I just keep working till I get to that white. See there, it starts to appear. And as soon as it starts to appear, I move off that area and then I move on to the next area. So that's pretty much what I'll be doing. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and continue to do that. No reason for you guys to watch. Alright, so I'm back at it. Here we go. What I did now is I sanded pretty much the whole center of it. I kept going until bubbles were either gone or it started to get hard to sand and feather it away. Obviously you can see all these pigtail swirl marks. I'm not done sanding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to step it down. I was using 100. I'm going to go ahead and use like a 180 or 220, 240, somewhere around there. And I'm going to keep feathering everything back, and if any more bubbles start to appear, then I'm going to bring those back down to the fiberglass, and I'm going to keep going until everything's pretty much gone. I'm going to try to stay away from the sides, because if you look at the sides, everything actually looks pretty decent over here. Some run marks, but that could be easily wet sanded out. Everything here is fine. I took most of the masking off. I still need to do it. Figured I should redo the masking, but I'm going to keep doing this. Kept going here. You can see there some run marks, but for the most part, no bubbles. Everything looks fine. It's just the top that's messed up. So I got to keep going. Got to keep at it. Like I said, I'm going to switch up to like a 180, 220, 240, somewhere around there. High 100s, low 200s, and feather everything back. Hopefully this works this time. Alright guys, so it's the next day. Sanded it down. I didn't get rid of all the pigtails. What I'm doing now though is, like I said, I was talking to a few people. They told me that I need to put basically a skim coat over the whole top with either like a glazing putty or with a thinned down version of like a Bondo or a gel coat. So I'm going to use the same glazing spot putty that I used before over on this side of the hardtop, because if you remember in the last video there was actually no bubbles there. So my intentions is to use that and just pretty much skim all the way down to about here, and then do the whole entire top of that like that. Alright guys, I kind of wanted you to see what I was going to be doing, so I have my camera set up. My son's actually going to hold it. I'm going to let you guys watch as I spread the putty over. I'm going to kind of move it around in there, try to make it nice and soft, and then there's a hole. You got to pop the hole through, and then it's open. And then I'm going to spread out a decent amount. And then I'm just going to take this and start spreading across. Alright, so that's one of them. I pretty much ran out of that, so I have another, and that's what I'm going to do through the whole entire top. Alright, so I wasn't smart. I didn't buy enough of that putty. I honestly thought that 2 would be enough, but 2 of them was only enough for half of the hardtop, so I'm going to have to buy another 2 and go ahead and come over here and put that on there. The good part is it doesn't matter if I do it in 2 different parts. I really just got to let this stuff completely dry to the point where I could sand it smooth. And what we're going to do is make sure none of those ridges that you see are in there, and make sure that I don't go all the way down to the actual fiberglass itself. I still want there to be some of this red left over, so I'm probably going to use a finer grit. Because I'm not going to try to break it down. I'm just going to try to smooth it out. You can see here where I kind of came down the side a little bit and feathered it in, so that's going to be sanded smooth. And then any of these bigger clumps that I left here like that, I'll be able to just take down and take off. But I'm going to have to go get another 2 tubes of that stuff to finish the top of the hood. And that should, fingers crossed, make sure that no more bubbles pop up. If we look at the rest of the hardtop, I did sand it down, not completely. That's why there's still some gloss there. I still want to do that before I decide to put a primer coat over it. But that's the way it looks. So besides putting a skim coat over the top, the other thing that I was told to do is that I need to use a primer with a catalyst in it. Usually that's going to be sprayed on with a gun, but I have found online that they could sell them in aerosol cans. They'll be 2K primer with a catalyst. It's kind of like 2K clear coat, where you have to pop the top off, push it in the bottom, and it gets the 2 parts to mix, and then you start spraying it. Same thing with the primer. From my understanding, it hardens better, hardens quicker, and it'll make it to where if there is any air in the fiberglass, this skim coat should keep it from popping out, and the catalyst should keep it from popping out too. So hopefully that will work. So next video I'll probably have this all finished up and probably sanded to the point where I can prime it. Alright guys, so I just block sanded the glazing putty across the hardtop. It's getting really windy here. It's actually supposed to get cold and possibly snow tomorrow. So my timeline on this is either really quick or I'm gonna have to put it on hold for a little bit. But what I did is I did the glazing putty over the whole entire thing, and then I block sanded the whole entire thing. You can see how some of the white from the fiberglass is showing. I'm not too worried about that. I think it's pretty well sealed. Now the next step that I'm going to do is a filler primer, see what that looks like, see how many pits might show through, or see what that is, and I'll sand that down as needed. And then my next step would be a primer with the catalyst. I still haven't picked that up, but I want to at least get the primer on there, and then, or the filler primer on there, possibly a sealer primer on there. See what happens, hope the bubbles don't pop up, and then so long as bubbles don't pop up, then I'm going to do the catalyzing primer to seal everything completely in. At that point I should be able to paint. But like I said, weather might stop that. I don't want a lot of this exposed to moisture or temperature changes, so I might have to bring it inside or just get it done. Alright, so I got a coat of filler primer on top of everything. For the most part, everything looks pretty smooth. I'm hoping that it dries without any of those bubbles. I'm going to do the catalyst primer later. That way I can seal everything off. Right now I just want to get everything sanded smooth. And since this is sanding, I'm not too worried about off-gassing or anything like that since I'm sanding it. I'm really just going to have to worry about the off-gassing later on, right before I put in the catalyst primer, before I actually paint it itself. There are some things that I have noticed. I have a few pinholes here. Right there you can see a few pinholes. I went a little too much there. You could see the run. And then there are a few scratches here and there. You can see right there a few scratches. Some of those are crack marks where I didn't sand down the glaze putty well enough. Those are kind of everywhere, but I do plan on sanding this. This is a filler primer. It's meant to be sanded, so I do plan on sanding it down smooth and then doing a sealer primer or the catalyst primer. I'm going to look up what steps to use, and then honestly I might skip the catalyst primer even though I was told to do it. I've been looking at more videos, looking at a few more things, looking at other people that have rattle canned their cars, and people that are working with fiberglass, people that are working fiberglass using aerosol, and I haven't really seen anyone use a catalyzing primer unless it's a professional shop. So I'm really thinking I could get away with it so long as I let each coat off gas well enough, and as long as I give each coat of paint the right flash time to off gas and dry up. But right now this is just filler primer. Going to let it dry, let it set up. This is basically two coats, a light coat and then a heavier coat right over the top. So I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to do a light sanding on it with probably like 400, and then I'm going to do another coat of filler primer, let that set up, dry, and then probably do another light sanding of that with 400. And then from that point on, I'll go on to either a sealer primer, a catalyzed primer, one of those two, and then paint it. Okay, so I did 2 coats of a filler primer, and I sanded down each coat. And then it started to get late, and I wasn't sure what the weather was going to be like, so I wanted to do a primer sealer to help seal in the paint. I'm not worried too much about moisture or anything like that. With the primer sealer, you could kind of get away with leaving it primed without painting it for a while. Looking at the weather for today, it's going to be rainy off and on. The temperatures aren't going to be too bad, and the sun's going to pop out every now and then, so I have the rest of the day to really work with, and that's it. Looking at it, it actually looks really good. It's pretty smooth, but I do have some issues. I still have a little bit of pitting. You can see it right there. So I don't think I'm going to be able to paint this just yet. I'm definitely going to have to do some filling, and then I'm going to have to do a little bit more sanding to get rid of some of this stuff. and it's just in a couple places. So my idea is to use the glazing putty that I had, but to use it very minimally, to barely just only fill in these pinholes, and then sand that smooth, and then do one more coat of either a filler primer or just a sealing primer to get everything all cleaned up, and then hopefully it'll be ready for paint. Alright guys, so I went with the glazing putty. I went on really thin. Some places you could see, just because of the color, it's a little thicker. But the goal was to fill in a lot of these holes, and you could see that for the most part those holes are filled in to the top. I think there's a little bit of shrinkage to where it's not completely filled to the top, but I think a filler primer will help take care of that. So what I've been doing is I've been block sanding with this Gator Zip Quick Change Mega Sponge. I got this at Walmart. It has like a hook on the back of it that will attach to it, and then that kind of keeps it straight. And I've used regular sandpaper on it also. You kind of just have to hold it on there like this. This is 220. I'm not really trying to knock down a whole bunch of the primer. I'm really just trying to knock down the glazing putty. So pretty much just going to come over it in a lot of different angles until I get it smooth. You can see all the dust coming off from doing that. So I'm going to do that to the whole entire thing. And if you look at the back of the pad, it starts to gum up. See that? But kind of crazy, but I kind of just hit it on my leg, and you can see how the majority of it's gone now. A few pieces there that I'll see if I can take off. But I'm just going to keep doing that, keep block sanding until I have the whole thing block sanded. Alright guys, here's where I'm at. I got the glazing putty on there. I sanded down. I tried to sand down with 220, and it wasn't really taking it down the way I wanted. So I switched to a 150 on my sanding block, and then took it down a little quicker that way. And then I went up to a 220, smoothed it all out a little more, and then up to a 320 to smooth it out even more. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tack cloth. I don't know if you guys have ever used a tack cloth, or I'm sure you've heard people using them, but first time I've ever used one, and they're amazing. There's these little pieces where, let's see, where you can see that little piece of paint right there that'll stick up. If I try to rub that off, you can see I rubbed it off with my finger. Some of them won't come off so easy, but if you use the tack cloth, like see that one right there, if you use the tack cloth gets rid of it right away. So I'm going to go ahead and tack cloth the whole entire hardtop, and then I'm going to do one more coat of a filler primer so that I could fill in any scratches. But what I wanted to also show you is, here's that spot where you saw those little pits. If you look now, those pits are filled. And then here's the spot where there was some cracking going on. Those are filled now. So I really think that this is going to be a lot smoother of a surface. Here's another spot where there was bad pits. Those are filled now. So definitely going to be a lot smoother of a surface, something better to work with. I'm going to apologize right now for the dog barking in the background. I don't want to miss filming this opportunity or this step, but I have the hardtop completely sanded down now, smooth. There really isn't any pits. You can kind of see like tiger striping going on, especially when I move around. But everything is smooth. Everything is ready. So if you were doing this right, I would assume the next step would be to use the catalyzing primer. It's a two-part primer, one part catalyst, one part paint, basically primer paint. And then you would spray this over. And that would ensure that everything's sealed and ensure that none of those bubbles that I had in my other video come back. I got a feeling that I really don't have to do that. Also, I haven't had a chance to pick it up or order it, so it's gonna delay everything. And I don't got a lot of time due to the weather that's coming. Super sorry about the dogs. Alright, so once again, dogs in the video. So sorry about that. I put my first coat of black down. It's a lighter coat, so a lot of that gray that you're seeing come through is actually the primer below. Gonna let this dry for about 10 minutes or so, and then I'm gonna come around and do another coat. And I'm just gonna keep coating, and I have 2 cans. I'm just gonna keep going until I run out of the 2 cans. But I'm gonna try to wait a little longer in between each coat to make sure that it off gases correctly. But yeah, that's the plan. If I look at the can, here's what I'm using. I'm gonna go inside for a second. Alright, so here's what I'm using, right? It's just Rust-Oleum 2X Ultra Cover Paint and Primer, wood, metal, plastic, whatever, right? Gloss black. And then if we look at this, it says, where is it? Paint and shake, can vigorously for 1 minute. After mixing begins rattle, blah, blah, blah. Don't strike can, 10 to 16 inches away. Keep the can in motion while spraying. Apply 2 light coats for a few minutes apart. Dry and recoat times. What I'm looking for, there it is. Dries to touch in 20 minutes. To handle in one hand, and it can handle in 1 hour, and fully dried in 24 hours. Apply a second coat or clear coat within 1 hour to 48 hours. So basically, I should do everything as far as that goes. I should be able to recoat this in 20 minutes, but I have actually all the way up until 48 hours to recoat. So I'm gonna wait probably about 15 minutes and then recoat, and then let that dry for about 15 minutes and then recoat. Then I'm probably gonna let that dry for about 2-3 hours to see if there is any off-gassing issues. Alright, so I have 2 coats on here, and paint needs to pretty much set up and cure. I do have enough paint to go ahead and do 2 more coats, but I'm gonna wait. And the reason I'm gonna wait is if we really look close, you can see these little dots, right? The paint started coming out odd, basically started splattering paint. Nozzle might have got clogged somehow for a brief moment, so I need to get rid of all of that little bits of splatter everywhere, so I don't have to worry about it showing through. The other thing I'm a little concerned about is some of the sand marks are still showing through, which I was hoping would go away. So I'm gonna let this dry, let this completely set up, and then I will come in and try to sand it smooth with higher grit, like a 400 or 800, something that's not really gonna take it down much, but hopefully just smooth it down. But yeah, that's pretty much my next step. I also want to let this dry up to see if any big bubbles start to pop up. This is about the time where everything looked good, but then I came out later on, and those were the big bubbles that came out. So I'm gonna let this set up for probably about 2 or 3 hours, let it get to the point where it could be handled. I say it needs an hour to handle, so I figure 2 to 3 hours is definitely enough time to get it to handle. Alright guys, so I'm pretty much done painting. The only thing I haven't done is clear coat it. I don't really see it looking any different once I clear coat it as far as getting glossier. But I'm going to call this video pretty much a wrap. No more videos for the hardtop for now. Maybe an update later on. But I did want to show you guys one more thing. I'm just going to leave it. If I ever get my car painted, then I will deal with it then. But for now, I'm probably just going to leave it alone. Maybe during the summer when the temperatures are better, I'll revisit it. But the one thing I wanted to show you is that right there. That is not bubbles. that is actually indentations. For some reason, indentations started to show up. When I say started to show up, what happened was I went to go sand down the tiger striping from the black, and I noticed that there was a little bit of like a high spot. So I sanded it a little bit more, and the high spot was actually kind of hiding the low spots. So once it got sanded down, all those indentations popped up. I don't really want to deal with it right now. I think the top looks good. I think it looks better than it ever did since I've owned it. So I'm hoping that it dries well. Wait for this plane to fly over. I'm hoping that it dries well and it cures fine. I told you earlier in the video that it was supposed to snow, but it's not going to do that anymore. Weather's changed. Temperatures should be warmer, but not warm. But yeah, here it is. If you look, it's pretty much glossy all the way around. Looks pretty good. You can't even see those indentations from this view. But everywhere, got a nice shininess to it. See the reflection. There's that. So it looks good. We're out of focus there. Looks good. I'm gonna leave it like that and hope that nothing else somehow manages to pop up while it continues to dry. Hey guys, pretty much forgot to end the video. So make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe. There it is in the background.